Welcome back from the break. You are still with Diplomatic Affairs, and my name is Harriet Naate. Today's topic is another insightful one, and I hope you are not missing out. So tell your friends to join in on the conversation. Like I said, you can go to our Facebook pages, our Facebook page together with the rest of the various social media platforms that we have, and put across your questions. If you have any messages you want to send us, please send us. Keep your messages coming. We are big on your thoughts, and we want to know what you think about preparing SMEs for effective participation in the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, AFTA. And so if you own a small business or a medium-sized business, you can also participate. This conversation on this topic is actually for you, so you can be part of the conversation that we are having on the show. And my guest is Anthony Owusu Anand, the CEO of Impact Capital Advisors and the fund manager for Industrial Support Fund. Right now, let's focus on the Industrial Support Fund. You mentioned that there aren't many institutions like what you do, which is the Industrial Support Fund, that is providing financial assistance to SMEs. And you would wish that we would have a lot more come into the system to help with the load that we have in terms of financial assistance to businesses that need help to take off. Let's talk about the Industrial Support Fund, and then we will look at businesses that you think should be focused on at this minute with the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Thank you very much. Well, the Industrial Support Fund, as the name kind of connotates, it's a fund that was set up to support industries in sub-Saharan Africa. So our aim is to raise about $100 million to support industries in at least 5 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. But as I initially said, every journey begins at home. So we started off with what we call the Industrial Support Fund Ghana. And our aim is to raise about $30 million to provide support to small and medium-scale enterprises in Ghana. We are actually now 1/3 in that fundraising journey, and we have actually commenced investments. We will be very grateful to the government of Ghana through the Venture Capital Trust Fund for giving us seed capital to start the Industrial Support Fund. And this was done in support of the 1D1F initiative from His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa, the President. So we basically, through this fund, provide financing, not your typical debt financing that you get from the bank. We do what we call venture capital financing. So we provide equity and what we call equity type instruments to businesses that need between $50,000 to about $5 million in financing, in addition to providing technical support and managerial assistance for them to grow their businesses. So in effect, that is what the Industrial Support Fund does.
You do what you term as venture capital financing.
Right.
Could you break it down for us to understand what that means?
Okay. Well, you did mention earlier on that people do say that they want funding and they don't get funding.
Right.
Now, I also did mention that businesses go through a life cycle. So just like a baby, when you have a baby, you don't give them food to eat, right?
Yeah.
You have to give them baby food, then they grow, they get to a certain stage, and then they move on with their life. So in the financing world, there's also a financing, should I say, life cycle. When businesses are very early and they are young, the type of funding that is typically provided to them, which we'll call risk finance, is what we will typically call venture capital or private equity financing. So that when the businesses grow and they are stable enough, they can go for your traditional debt financing, which is I give you a loan, you pay me back with an expected return. So if my return is 20%, If I give you a loan for 20%, you pay me back my money with 20%. But in venture capital financing, we do equity and equity type financing. So we don't necessarily say that we want 20%. It is more like we become partners of your business and we become shareholders of your business. And if you win, we win together. And if you lose, we lose together. So it is actually more risky to do. And that is why businesses at that stage don't get financing. And we have decided that that is the space that we want to play in, because that is what is needed. Babies have to grow before they start running. So that's what venture capital financing is typically about. It's financing which comes to support businesses in the early stages of their venture, if you want to put it that way. They're going on a venture, they're going on an adventure, and we provide the financing to allow them to take that venture.
All right, so in your perspective, let me ask you, which in building African-owned businesses to effectively participate in the Free Trade Pact, which SMEs do you think government should begin focusing on by giving them the assistance in terms of money and the technical support that they need?
It's a very broad question.
It is.
Our needs are many. Needs from housing to agriculture to technology. There are so many industries within our economies that need support. But I will bring it down to what my fund, the sectors that my fund actually supports, and give the rationale why we decided to focus on those sectors.
Okay.
And what the first sector we focus on is agro-processing.
Right.
Now, why do we focus on agro-processing? It is very simple. They present very low-hanging fruit opportunities. So we plant oranges. When we harvest them and we can't eat it all, they go bad.
Yeah.
But if we can process it and put it in a box or do some kind of value-add product with it, then we can increase the shelf life of that product so that we reduce, should I say, food insecurity. Also, once we add, we can export. Exactly.
So adding value to the raw materials.
To the agricultural
Right.
produces that we have.
Right.
For me, it's a very critical sector that needs to be supported. And if you look back into history, most industrialized nations or most wealthy nations actually started their industrialization processes by adding value to agricultural products. So once you add value to agricultural products, you create food security. And also remember that a lot of our economy is still agriculture still employs a very large proportion of our informal economy. So when you support agriculture, you are basically supporting a lot of jobs, both for both women and rural job creation. So it has potential for food security, it has potential for job creation, and it also has potential to earn foreign exchange through exports. Now, the next sector that we focus on is what we call light manufacturing. Now, why do we use the word light?
Light,
not heavy.
Not heavy.
But light manufacturing. We use the word light because manufacturing, the money you need to do manufacturing can easily run into the millions. So, for example, if you decide to set up a car manufacturing plant, for example, you probably run into almost $1 billion to set up, that kind of industry. So that's heavy, very heavy. But if you decide to set up something like a ceramic manufacturing company to provide ceramic plates and cups, which we import all from China, that is light. So the amount of funding that might be needed to set up something like that will probably be in the region of, let's say, something less than $5 million. So we believe that anything that needs financing lesser than $5 million is light. So it could be in any sector. Anything
that needs financing
below $5 million.
Okay, below $5 million is termed as light.
We consider it as light financing. Okay. Light. It's not very heavy because the amount of $5 million in manufacturing is really small money. So there are so many things around us that we can add value to. Even if you talk about the timber industry, furniture, we still import furniture from China. Toothpicks, we import them. tin tomatoes, we import them. What do you call it? Ceramic plates, glasses, so many construction materials, floor tiles. There are so many things that we can locally manufacture that we are importing. And if we can get the appropriate financing and appropriate technical expertise to local businesses and promoters to start manufacturing these things, then we are beginning to build our manufacturing base, and then gradually we'll watch them become heavy industries over time.
All right then. So I think you in a way summarized my question, the answer to my question, because I was hoping we could touch on the various products or produce. For instance, you mentioned agro-processing, and you talked about adding value to agricultural products. So we know that oranges and then the other, fruits, we can just look at how best we can add value and also create storage for them and even export when we cannot consume everything that we produce. And then you made mention of the light manufacturing, which also sums up to the ceramics, the toothpick, and then the other things that you mentioned. I was currently, with the start of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Ghana has taken off. We witnessed the launch of start of trading few days ago in Accra. That means that marks the beginning of trading in Ghana under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. What do you suggest? What can you propose? Because this is a very important platform. We have authorities watching. And so what can you currently, off the top of your head, what can you propose that we begin focusing on in terms of adding value to some of these light manufacturing to get us to take off? Because most of these SMEs are in the various areas that I have mentioned, right?
Yeah. It's very difficult to say what do we focus on, because we practically import everything.
So that's why I'm asking. We practically import everything. So countries now have started looking within what are the things that we can begin with?
To manufacture.
Exactly.
Let's take COVID. In the advent of COVID, we've now realized that our pharmaceutical industries needs to be supported. And so can we start by looking at generic, should I say, medicines that can be locally manufactured so that we don't have to depend on imports when there is something like COVID, which I think the government has already made an initiative, and I'm pretty much aware that the government is supporting the pharmaceutical industries to be able to provide some of the medicines that we need. We import mattresses, for example. Can we start having a local base that produce some components in the manufacturing of, say, mattresses, for example, that we can export to Togo or to Burkina Faso or to Ivory Coast or to Nigeria? There's so much that can be done. That's why it's very difficult for me to say that pick this very particular industry. But what I do know is that agro-processing presents opportunities and light manufacturing presents opportunities. Today, if you move into any of our supermarkets, let's say you go to Melcom and you want to buy ceramic plates, it's probably going to be coming from China. If you want to buy a door, for example, a security door, it's probably coming from Turkey. Meanwhile, we have welders in Ghana, and we have scrap metal in Ghana, we have wood in Ghana.
Is it because industrialization in Africa, or let's even zoom down to Ghana, is very costly?
Well, you are right, and I wouldn't use the word costly. We may not be competitive, and we may not be competitive for different reasons. Some of the things that could make us uncompetitive could be finance, for example. When the cost of finance is very high, then obviously once you produce something and you have to take care of your financing cost, then the final product becomes expensive. There could also be the issues of economies of scale. When something is too small, sometimes it becomes very difficult to produce that thing per unit price to be lower. Then there are also other macro level, should I say, constraints that needs to be unlocked. One of them is energy. So, for example, energy cost in most part of Africa is very expensive. Energy cost in Africa is between 10 to 15 cents per kilowatt hour. Meanwhile, if you go to places like China, they are getting 4 to 6 cents per kilowatt hour. So when the Chinese is manufacturing at 4 to 6 cents per kilowatt hour, and you in Africa, you are manufacturing at 10 to 15 cents per kilowatt hour, already they have some kind of competitive advantage besides technology and all that. So there are a lot of constraints that I believe governments needs to look into and see how they can create some kind of soft
again, we need that collaboration between governments and the private sector
to unlock the constraints so that we can begin to be competitive.
Okay then. So what, from where you sit, where do we go from here with the implementation or with the operationalization of the Free Trade Pact now? Where do we go from here? Are you looking for small and medium enterprises to come knocking at your door for finance or for financial assistance to boost their businesses? Or you are rather looking out for, in a way, strategically, looking out for businesses that you think have the potential to sustain?
Good question. Like I said, the elephant is big. Africa's manufacturing base is weak and small. And for us to really have a meaningful trade within ourselves, we have to manufacture. And if we don't manufacture, we don't trade. So my fund is just a small piece of that elephant. And we are doing our best in terms of people coming to us for us to support them. But I believe that, as I said earlier on, there needs to be more of us, and at the same time, a concerted effort to really create a competitive base for African-owned enterprises. Because we may fall into the trap where we create a market and foreign companies will come, set up shop in Africa, produce goods and sell it within the African region, and then repatriate those funds, profits out of the continent. So that
that's another serious concern that has been raised by many.
Exactly.
How we can circulate the money within the continent.
Exactly. So it all boils down to we have to create manufacturing businesses so that we can have the goods and services that will allow us to benefit from the trade. So we've set up the free trade area. Good. Now, how do we benefit from it? The focus should be on manufacturing, value add, so that we can produce the goods and trade among ourselves, generate wealth within the continent, circulate the wealth within the continent, and create sustainable generational wealth. If not, what we would have done is there will be foreign direct investment, we will get jobs, we'll get taxes.
But what kind of jobs are we getting?
Well, so long as industries are set in Africa, regardless of who owns them, there will be managerial jobs, there will be factory level jobs, there will be farm level jobs if it's agro processing and stuff like that. If it is commodities, there will be, if it's mining or whatever, there will be some kind of jobs that will be created as a result of those investments. But my take on it is that we have to move into partnership with foreign companies and also look to supporting our own.
All right.
To also set up industries to meaningfully benefit in the long run from the continental free trade area that we have created. So manufacturing should be the focus after all the big speeches have been made. We need to get on the ground and build businesses.
Practical.
Build businesses so we can trade.
Awesome. We need to get on the ground and build businesses so we can trade. It is the only way we can meet the objectives of the trade pact that has been created for the people of Africa on the African continent. Mr. Annan, thank you so much. This has been very, very educative, informative, and very insightful for me as well. And I believe our viewers have had so much insights of what we should do right now when it comes to talking about small and medium enterprises. And of course, what it is expected of them as well in making sure that they are ready and well positioned to effectively or take opportunity of the free trade pact that has been set. I have this. I don't have. I have this for you. And the person says, Danny says, brilliant. This man is pregnant with so many ideas and very dedicated to the cause. And so this came for you. And Danny, he says thank you. And also Anite Sowa says he's watching us live from London. Well, thank you very much for joining the show today. Alhassan Sumani Jr. Well, thank you so much. And Yigan Daniel, I hope I got the name right. Well, thank you so much for watching. I was expecting, I know we will be having, usually messages do come after we are done with the streaming of the show on social media. That's when we have people having the time to watch and then sending us their messages. So once they do come in, I will forward them to you so you can attend to the ones that you think need attendance immediately. Thank you very much. So my guest for today's episode of Diplomatic Affairs has been Anthony Owusu Anan, and he is the CEO of Impact Capital Advisors and the fund manager for Industrial Support Fund. Like I said, the conversation has been very, very insightful. If you missed, you know where to catch up with us, or you know where to go and watch it. Don't forget to also subscribe and follow our YouTube channel, Diplomatic Affairs on YouTube, where we have very, very insightful content churned out on that platform. So if you missed any of the episodes, you could just go back to Diplomatic Affairs, our YouTube channel, follow, subscribe, and get interactive. You can catch up on all that you miss on that platform. And also thank you so much for making time to watch us on today's discourse. We discussed building African companies.